Hey everyone, it's Daniel here from InfoVest. Hope you're all doing well. Let's talk about the UK. Now, very interesting article. I'll put in the description for you to read up on it. But basically, UK is rationing vegetables, and there's a food supply shortage issue there, which is causing elevated food prices. Now, there are a lot of things that the UK is blaming this on. One is on weather, the other is on Brexit, the other is that, there's tomatoes and vegetables in certain areas but not in others, and has to do with another issue has to do with the grocery chains, the big supermarkets, playing games and not getting vegetables and produce from local farmers, etc., etc., etc. Right? But the point is, the fact that there are this talk about supply shortages, there is in certain areas, in certain major supermarkets, the supply issues for certain stores. The fact that it's being engraved in the consumer's expectation is the key. Now, I don't know what the true story is behind it. I do agree with the supply chain issue. If we were to just look at economics itself, you could go through many theories, conspiracy theories, etc., etc. We'll not get into that, but definitely there is, ever since start of COVID, this war, etc., it did bring supply chain issues. The cost is rising. You are seeing it in the food prices, right? Again, you can come up with 1,000 more reasons for this, but the point is the fact that the prices are elevated, you've got the supply chain issues, the shortages, the fact that that's driving into consumers' expectation is a very big problem. Why is that a problem? Because if this continues to seep into consumers and it stays there for a long time, and this inflation doesn't come down, and we continue to see this for a year or two or so on, and that starts to seep into the consumers, then the expectation is that they will expect higher prices. And if they expect higher prices, and it has to do with food, they need to eat, right? People still need to eat. So what they will do is accept the higher prices. Yes, they can complain about it, etc., etc. You can look at alternatives. Then the alternatives will start to become more expensive as everyone rushes towards there. But the point is, at the end of the day, if that seeps into the consumer's expectation, and then if they're willing and they're accepting that the prices are going to continue to be like this, then sure, that gives power to the supermarkets, the stores, the supply chain and whatnot to keep prices elevated, to manipulate the prices, etc., etc. And you could see, a lot of people talk about how it's creating an unfair market. So sure, definitely you could expect that. Now, the central banks don't want that, right? The Bank of England definitely doesn't want that. All the central banks around the world don't want the inflation expectation to be anchored and elevated, because if it is, it's going to be very hard to bring inflation down lower. And that's what brings in those higher rates, those higher expectations, because the Fed, the central bank, wants to control inflation. It doesn't want it to be out of their hands and completely fail at it. So this story about the UK food issue is just one of the many examples how inflation can stay elevated for some time until maybe something is solved in terms of the supply chain issue, the war is resolved, or a very, very deep and long recession maybe. And maybe with that, or a black swan event that happens where you see really big destruction in the employment, you see high unemployment rate, you see depression levels of growth completely deteriorating, and not only deteriorating for just like a year or so, but maybe for quite some time, maybe years, in order to get the inflation level down, which would trickle back into asset prices like stocks, housing, etc., to be maybe in range motion for some time until this issue is solved. And if you go back to the 1970s and 80s, you've seen a decade long of range, especially in the 70s, because this inflation issue wasn't solved. You've seen that from 2000, from the dot-com bubble burst to 2008. If you measure from those areas, the peaks kind of matching, and where it's just ranging for about 8, 9, 10 years, and then eventually having a bull run. So we could see something similar like that, especially if this inflation continues to be sticky, it's anchored, it's not going away. More articles about this, more of the politicians pushing out that, hey, it's this person's fault, that person's fault. But when you do that, at the end of the day, you're just telling the consumer and creating the expectation for the consumer that, hey, inflation's a problem, price is a problem, accept it, and that doesn't solve the issue with prices. Or the other argument that people might be saying is that, hey, they're trying to move us away from eating meat or vegetables and start eating insects. I don't know. You let me know. Leave a comment below, subscribe, hit the like button, the bell icon to be notified on the next video, and I'll see you guys around. Cheers. Bye.